Golden Spiral Media presents The Blacklist Exposed.
Was it the Major? Was it Lizzie's real father? Was it Fitch's ghost? You decide who the shooter was on the award-nominated Blacklist Exposed podcast. I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. And Troy, if you mention that mother theory once this episode, I swear to God, I'm going to rip that forked tongue out right out of your mouth and send it to the director myself. Thanks for joining us this week as we discuss number 117 on the Blacklist, Vanessa Cruz, which aired April 2nd, 2015. It was written by Vincent Angel and Daniel Knopf and directed by Guy Ferlin. Show notes and other intel for this episode of The Blacklist Exposed can be found at goldenspiralmedia.com/theblacklist.
We just want to say, if you happen to be in Las Vegas the week of April 13th through the 16th, Aaron and I are actually going to be there at the Podcast Awards at the Westgate Las Vegas Convention Center. So if you're there and you're a Blacklist fan, just give us a tweet or drop us a message in that Facebook group, because we'd love to meet up with you, and maybe we can get some of your conversations recorded and put that out for that special episode.
Woohoo! I hope you guys do. I would love to see some of you there.
We asked you all last week to answer our profiling question of the week for the Longevity Initiative. Who should Liz end up with? Tom Keene or Donald Ressler?
Man, you guys came out in droves for this one. Over 500 responses to the profiling question this week. And the results are in. You ready?
Ready.
Okay. 43% said Team Tom. Team Tom won.
Man, that sucks.
37% said Team Ressler.
Okay, now I'm actually surprised that is as close of a vote as it was.
I'm not. They're both handsome fellas.
True.
Mm-hmm. Now, you might be sitting there with a calculator going, wait, Aaron. That is not 100%. You are correct, because 16% of you said Team Red, which, if it's her dad or her uncle, you're all going to feel really ashamed of that. And also, I got a lot of flack for saying Team Red wasn't allowed, by the way. I don't appreciate that. Let's all hug it out.
And you see, I bit my tongue there. No pun intended.
Jeez, you just joke with people. They take it a little too serious. Team Liz got 3%. People are just making up options. And Team None got 1%. Wouldn't that be like the same as Team Liz?
Not exactly, Aaron. So when I actually probed somebody for their response as to why they picked that, they said the difference between Liz and None was that the people that were Team Liz said that she should be her own woman. Like, she didn't need a man to keep her down. She's strong and independent, so no man is technically good for her. And Team None actually implied that they want to introduce a new man into her life for next season.
Do we need another option, really?
It'd be interesting to see. Maybe she falls in love with some, up-and-coming youngster that joins the task force for season 3.
A youngster? like teenager? Is that what you're saying? You're trying to make this weird?
Not that young.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to clarify.
Still got to get through the academy and all that jazz.
You have a lot of odd theories.
She just turned 30 for her birthday.
I'd just like to clarify.
Well, thanks so much for coming out in droves this week. I'm sure it'll probably be the same, because our big profiling question for this week is the one everybody's asking. And no, it's not who shot JR. It's who shot Red Reddington. And we'll have lots of great theories and discussion about that as we discuss our episode case profile.
All right, well, before we start, let's all celebrate. Dembe got promoted. He's going to be a full season regular next year. Yay!
The question is will he have more to say or do, or are they just making him a season regular because he's been in basically every episode?
I don't care what he does. As long as he's regular, that means he's going to be around. I love me some Dembe. So whatever we got to do. What do you want? You want him to have a bigger piece of the pie?
I really love the Mombasa Cartel episode. Dembe's like Red's conscience, so I'd like to have more dialogue between the two of them at least, just to see how he kind of keeps Red honest in his quest as he moves forward.
You know what I always wanted with Dembe? Because he's always so strong and silent and really only talks to Red. I was always hoping for like a Bruce Willis Sixth Sense kind of thing, where at the end of the series, you find out he was always a figment of Red's imagination.
No, that'd be weird.
That'd be so cool to me. I like that. All right, let's get into this week's case profile. Vanessa Cruz, played by Ana de la Reguera, is the lady with the angel wing tattoos. She opens our show with a bang. because she poisons and drowns Mr. Challenger. This is a guy we don't really know, but we come to find out a little bit more as the show goes. How'd you like this as far as an introduction into the character as basically manipulative killer?
I liked it. The only question I had was, what did she actually shoot him up with? Was it more of a muscle relaxer and then he just kind of slinked into the bathtub? Or was it something that actually made his body heavier to make him sink into the bathtub?
I think it just paralyzed him and put him down. It looked like he was still breathing as he went down, so he was alive, I think, until he got under the water, and he couldn't move.
I was just wondering why he was still above the water until she kissed his forehead, and then he finally sunk after that. Just that little push made him just kind of melt into the water, I guess.
That's a good question. I was more curious about the angel wing tattoos.
And the question I had there was, are those really her tattoos in real life, or were they drawn on for the show because of that black dye that was washing out? I don't know if that was more her hair coloring for the gig she was playing, or if it was truly just washing off the tattoos on the back.
Oh, we have a new profiling question. Just kidding. Well, of course, Red puts the FBI onto her scent, which leads them to a correction facility where Mr. Conway fills in the blanks on who Cruz really is. This is a woman who targets the top 1% of the country, which I'm totally cool with, by the way. She basically sets them up, knocking them off if necessary, but essentially sets them up and smears their reputation, ruins their lives. I thought this was an interesting way to have a revenge killer. You know, usually you get some petty revenge. This is a really well thought out, organized, calculated response. I really, really liked this idea.
I did too. It was something different, and it kind of keeps with this concept that we've had with people like Covington and just these people that have a good purpose, just go about it the wrong way. So I'd like to see that same storyline continuing as they're trying to make the world right, because it almost reflects Red in a lot of ways, in the way he's doing bad things, but ultimately it's because he wants to make up for whatever happened to his family.
Yeah, I very much was impressed with this idea and wish I hope we get more of it, because it's something that, I think we can all agree, that 1%, man, they're bringing the country down.
I can tell you, though, this is the first time I've ever been really happy to be part of the 99%, because at least I'm alive.
I don't know. She's pretty cute. I think I'd take a chance. I'm shallow that way. Well, we end up, Liz and Ressler find Vanessa's mom, who tells them about Fernando. Now, Fernando was Vanessa's husband. At first, I thought it was her dad, but it was her husband. He was caught insider trading and ended up jumping off the George Washington Bridge. Vanessa ends up faking her death, and the guys that she's targeting turn out to be the SOBs that set the love of her life up. Once again, I really like this idea. I mean, it's a very calculated plan. My only question to you on this one is, don't you think these guys would know her face a little bit? I mean, I would imagine that she would be in the paper. It would be front page news. They would be familiar with Fernando's spouse. So I would think that she would be familiar to them. Or do you think because they're so elite, they just don't even care about the peasant people?
I actually thought that same thing, because Abby's boss, now she goes in and actually has a tryst with him twice. And I think what happens is that she actually has, because she's doing this dominatrix role, that she has the victims blindfolded, because the guy is wearing the kind of full ski mask type thing.
That'd be a gimp mask, my friend.
Okay, sure. I'm not into that stuff. Whatever you want to do is fine on your time.
Well, if you got some time, I'll explain how this all works. See, first you get a box.
Okay, so he's got a gimp mask on. And because of that, that's why he doesn't recognize her when he comes back the second time at the end of the episode. So I think she's blindfolding them initially, and then when she does the deed, she unveils who she is, and then they're all like, holy crap, it's you. Damn it.
Well, no, I mean, Mr. Salinger saw her, but she had a wig on. So I guess if you're in the top 1%, you're probably not going to pay attention to those peasants, you know, the people whose lives you ruin, because you're too busy being awesome.
But he was already shot with the stuff and in the bathtub. He could have been blindfolded previously.
Could have been. Well, you're obsessed with this blindfold thing. I think maybe you do have some issues you want to talk about. We'll talk about it after the show, Troy. We don't have time right now.
Okay.
Well, Vanessa, she did take care of her mom, so she didn't abandon her mom, even though she let her mom think that she was dead. It's kind of rude. But she set up a shelf corporation to take care of her mom. Not a shelf corporation. And as Samara explains, a shelf corporation is a company or corporation that has no activity, it's created and left with no activity, metaphorically put on the shelf to age. That company can then be sold to a person or a group of persons who wish to start a company without going through all the procedures of creating a new one. And apparently it's very legal. I only explain that again just because I think this will probably come up at some point later on in the series. It was very prominent in this episode. I don't know how it's going to come up, but don't you think when they explain something that detailed, it's going to come back?
Oh, absolutely.
Not just in this episode.
If you think about Red's organization and all the people that are involved with Red's syndicate themselves, not even the clandestine group, I mean, it seems like the perfect thing that you could do to keep your operations going, depending on whoever's in control, because you could just transfer that liability to whoever the next person is.
I like that. I'd never heard of this, and I looked into it. It's a real thing. I really thought, are they just making things up? Like they're taking shell and they're making something up? But it's a real thing.
Yeah, I was like, I think I tweeted out on Thursday night, education lesson for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be a career criminal, here's how you do it.
Who knew that you could actually learn something from TV? So stay in school, but watch TV also.
Oh, I've learned everything from TV. Are you kidding me? You'd be amazed what Lost taught me. All right, Liz avoids getting Red's help and instead goes to reform Tom. Like we do every week, we'll break the characters down later. So we'll get into Mr. Reformity. Because he wants to change. Don't we all? Just wants to change.
And learn how to swim.
And learn how to swim. It was so cute. All right, in exchange for Liz getting his passports, Tom takes Liz to Ziggy, who helps, basically she takes care of the Shelf Corporation, right? She set it up. That's what I gathered.
Yeah, either she was like the, I guess, lawyer to set up the paperwork for the Shelf Corporation, or she was some kind of like money broker that was moving stuff between the Shelf Corporations, possibly.
And they seem to have a little bit of a relationship. They've been friendly. She did seem a little jealous seeing Liz. I don't really know. And she called him Billy. So I don't know. That must be one of his past lives.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly what I said. It's one of his past characters before he started working with Liz.
Very interesting. I really hope we see Ziggy again. I don't know why she kind of stuck with me. I like that character. Well, she helps them find Cruz's address. Of course, they get there and she gone. But we do find a little bit more as to what Cruz was doing. All of these people are responsible for setting her husband up, like we said. Her current target is Mason Carlton. And she is setting him up by pretending to be Abby, his assistant, that Vanessa is also having an affair with. Then you got gimp masks, you got little games, she's setting up a murder where basically she's going to kill Abby and set Carlton up for the murder. Man, that's a twisted plan. But when it comes down to it, turns out Vanessa cannot go through with it because she has feelings for Abby. How did you like this entire setup?
The setup was awesome. And the only thing I kept thinking in the back of my mind was all of this blood and saliva and hair and cigarette butts that she's collecting. I would have loved to have seen a party with her and the stew maker.
You're obsessed with the stew maker, man. I swear you mention him in like every episode.
Dude, that episode was awesome. That was probably like one of the most interesting episodes of the series, just because of the concept of like disintegrating a person. But he kept those little trophies as well. And now here she's keeping trophies, but for a different purpose. She's using them to actually frame her next victim. And so I want to know how much of the trash digging, as Ressler put it, did she do versus how much embedded into people's lives did she become like she was with Abby in order to get enough stuff of Abby's to do this frame up?
That's a good question. I don't know. That's a good question. The one thing I want to point out is I like when you have killers that have heart as opposed to just, they act cold and calculated and have no remorse for it. Because she set off on this entire revenge thing because of her husband, because she loved her husband. And then as she's setting people up, she ends up having feelings for Abby, who's a total innocent in all of this. I mean, she was going to kill her, but she's a total innocent in all of this. And ends up sparing her life and not completing her revenge because she had feelings for her. I actually thought that was a nice twist. Even though some people probably think that's standard TV, but it was a nice twist.
I wasn't expecting it. I thought for sure she was going to shoot her, and then when she kind of had that teary-eyed look in her face, I was like, oh, she's going to live. That's nice. That's a good misdirection. I like it.
Now, did you like it? Because some people were complaining about it and said it was kind of a wuss out.
What I don't understand is why she took the time to move the body. Because he was in the chair, and then she moves the body to the bed, and then basically holds Abby at gunpoint, says, hey, stand over the body, and then runs away. So how would she have enough time to move the heavy man to the bed and have Abby not like take the gun from her and shoot her, or did she have Abby help him move the body? That's the one part I couldn't quite grasp out of my viewing of the second time.
I don't know. I thought it worked. It worked for me quite a bit. I was happy with it. But she does get away, which now we've had quite a few blacklisters that have gotten away. So I kind of like that they can't catch them all. She gets away, but Mr. Kaplan finds her and says Red wants her skill set. Well, she didn't actually say Red, so I guess, is it Red?
Yeah, she says my employer. We assume Mr. Kaplan works for Reddington.
Do you think it's Red?
You're going to say Mr. Kaplan has more than one employer?
Possibly, because this is a show where if they don't say it, it's open for interpretation.
Yeah, but we've seen Mr. Kaplan always on Red's side, so we'd have to assume that.
Which would be a really smart misdirection, would it not?
But if you go with the rules of the show, if the blacklisters are important to Red, the only reason Vanessa's on the list is because Red needs her for something. So that would imply then that Kaplan is still employed by Red, and Red's the one that needs her assistance.
I don't know. I think there's an option. I think there's really an option. Maybe it's the director that hired Kaplan. Maybe a Kaplan is a contractor, because it sure seems like it. Just something to think about.
Yeah, and we'll probably get into some of them in the character section, but that's a really good question is how many people are part of this clandestine group? Because I never would have pictured Hobbs to be part of it, and it seems like he is. And then we was. And then we get introduced to Mr. Jasper, but it almost seemed like Red was part of the group.
I think at one time he was. It sure doesn't seem like he's got a membership card anymore.
Right.
I think it's been revoked, Lethal Weapon style.
He turned on the family.
Well, if it is Red, let's assume it's Red, even though I'm actually going on the record. I think it's the director. I don't think it's Red, but I think that's a misdirection. My opinion. I'm probably wrong. I usually am. Let's assume it's Red that is sending Kaplan to get Cruz. What could he possibly want Vanessa for?
Well, if her job is to frame people for the murder of other people, then the first thing that comes in your mind, of course, is that the shooter, when Red gets shot, is obviously done on purpose because they have to invoke Red's death now that the fulcrum is in the open, so that way the protocol will start, that the fulcrum will get leaked. So my assumption is that he needs Vanessa to frame somebody for Red's murder in order to get the fulcrum released, but he's not really dead.
Okay. All right. That's a good plan and an idea. I really think if it is Red, he wants her to kill the director or ruin him for the other team members. I think it's something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and both of them are pretty much the two obvious choices, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have any other thoughts or theories, post them to the Facebook group. Again, the Blacklist Exposed, just search for it, or at the Blacklist GSM on Twitter. Let us know what you think on that.
There you go. Well, characters, each week we break down the individual characters, and there's a couple. I'm going to whip through these guys, okay, because they really didn't do much. Aram, Samar, Dembe, Cooper, they really didn't do much. Aram does a cool little bit of piecing together photos and fingerprints with some help from Osborne, who's a new character that we don't see. Do you think that's going to come back into play real quick?
Yeah, it's just other people in the background, like Kevin Wiseman's character was last week. So maybe we'll see an Osborne, maybe we won't.
I don't know if that would hold up in court, slapping together fingerprints, but whatever. He's really good with arches.
But with Aram as well, he did a really great job of some computer art animation. So I think we should do arts and crafts with Aram every week.
Apparently you can create evidence by piecing together everything. I like that. Now, the picture I bought, the fingerprint was a little bit of a stretch.
But even the picture was like, okay, Aram, are you like a serial killer in your other life because you're doing like magazine clippings in order to frame it up?
And if you look at it, because I did, we watched this twice for the show. We've said it every week. But looking at that picture, it didn't really look like a picture. Like, I could never identify anybody from that, ever.
Because you can identify people from the sketch artists that you do at the normal police station?
Yes, absolutely. That's how we catch criminals, Troy. That's how we do it. Samar, she's in exposition mode. She basically just explains what the Shelf Corporation is, like we said. Dembe waves a gun around, holds Red after being shot. Hopefully next season, when he's a regular, he'll get some actual dramatic heft. Cooper, honestly, does nothing but sit and stand. I mean, he's a damn good sitter, damn good stander this week. Except he does ask the one question everybody else is wondering, what's Red's angle? With Cruz, what's Red's angle? That is why I think it's a misdirection with Kaplan. Because you got the Kaplan thing where it's definitely implied that Red has an angle with Cooper, and you got Kaplan implying that the employer must be Red. I think that's where the misdirection from the show is. I think the employer is not Red, and that's why Cooper brings that up. I think that Kaplan got there before Red could. That's what I think.
So then the other question I have for you is, do you like the fact that Cooper is being the voice of the audience in that moment, or do you think it takes away from the show?
No, I think somebody needed to ask it. It definitely had to be asked, because if nobody's asking that question, then you start to become, what are you guys, all idiots? So somebody has to ask it, and I'd rather it was someone that didn't have a lot else going on that episode, so at least it gives them something. So yeah, I'm cool with that.
But I almost thought it was a cop-out, because every other episode we get to see what the tie-in is and how it plays together. And this was the first one, or maybe two, that wasn't very clearly evident. So it's almost like, hey, we forgot to tie this in, or they purposely wrote it that way to ask the question. So I wasn't too cool with it, but I'm glad it was in there because everybody was asking the question.
I didn't think it was a cop-out at all.
Okay.
So we agree to disagree, my friend, as per usual.
But at least Cooper had a point.
He did. He got to do something, man. He got to look at his little cane.
What about the little exposition between him and Liz? With the whole, hey, the cane's over here, you're over there, that makes me happy. Why would it make her happy? Just that, why throw that in there? That seemed kind of out of place.
Because she cared. She said before that she cares about him a lot. Now he's progressing. He's healing. She cares about him.
It just seems something you'd throw in the front of the episode, not in the back of the episode. Just me.
Well, now you're just looking for something right there, pal.
I know.
You're like, I want to dissect it. There's something hidden in there. That means you're watching too much Blacklist if you're looking for secret code and nice words. Ressler does a little bit of detecting this week, pieces together that Conway and friends set Fernando up. Once again, it's about all his character did. Really, the characters that had some progress this episode are Hobbs, Jasper, the director, Keen, Liz, and, of course, Red. So those are the characters we're going to focus on this week. You ready?
You bet.
Okay, Hobbs. Now, he lobbies on Red's behalf, and we learned that last week that he needed Hobbs's help, and this is why, it seems. But it seems like it was much to his own detriment. Do you think he's dead?
Well, the director said, go out of the country and don't come back. I would assume that if he would have gotten in the car, they would have shot him before he got out of the country. So why do the whole exposition about what you're going to do and not talk to your family and all the steps and protocol to do it? So I think that it shows the director may care about his people. Like he said, family is important. So maybe he doesn't want to kill Hobbs. He just wants to take Hobbs out of the game.
Maybe, but then you get Red's little conversation with Jasper later on the phone where he basically says that he assumes Hobbs is dead, or he knows Hobbs is dead now. So which is it?
He assumes Hobbs is dead. We all know what assuming means.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Okay, I was just curious. Do you think he's alive?
Could be. I mean, it's very plausible. I mean, especially with a group like this, you can obviously go out and do the killing thing, or you can just assume that he followed the protocol, and the protocol is what it is. That's the Blacklist for you. Open to interpretation based on how your mind thinks.
Okay.
And something that just popped into my head, I can't believe we missed this last week when Hobbs was introduced, but you remember when Fitch was in the box and his head blew up, that he said maybe Mitch and Hobbs can help. So is this the Hobbs of the Mitch and Hobbs?
I would imagine, right?
Yeah. I was like, oh, wait, yeah, Mitch and Hobbs, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. Now, what about this Jasper guy, that sneaky little bastard that set Hobbs up? Did you think he was going to flip, or did you think he was going to help Red out?
It was a really hard read this week with that guy. I didn't expect him to be so in the back pocket of the director, because if you got that speech, and it's going to be one of our Reds rhetorics this week about being a pitcher or a catcher, I would think most people want to be pitchers. So because of that, I really thought that something was going to happen. So this actually is surprising that the director has so much influence and so much power. So I'm really curious to see more about the director's character as we go into these final 4 episodes, hopefully.
Now, what do you think about this character? Are you enjoying him?
He didn't do much in the episode, so I don't know what he really brings to the table. So I'd have to see him more in like Hobbs's role, where he's at least back channeling and doing some other conversations. He was just there to manipulate this vote. And the bigger question, of course, is what is the vote? Why are they having a vote? What is the vote about? And then, we need some more of that backstory. So hopefully we get some of that before the season ends.
I'm really curious how this plays into everything as we go. If Jasper will end up on the blacklist, so to speak.
I would assume so now, because it's important to Red, so Red needs to get him on or off the chessboard. In this case, now he wants him off because he wants to rip out his forked tongue.
Absolutely. He's going to better run like the prairie wind. That's what I'm saying. The director pops back up. We haven't seen David Strahan in a while, and I was excited to see him. Yay! I love that guy. He has a really long monologue about treating people like family, kind of like Vin Diesel in the Fast and Furious movies. And he explains how he basically is sending Hobbs away. As we just talked about, we're kind of split on if Hobbs is alive or dead. But did Red misjudge him? Did he think he could get basically pull the carpet out from underneath him and really misjudge what he was able to do?
I don't think so, because he was, in Luther Braxton, he was able to sneak right into the director's office and have the seat in the chair. So Red could get to the director if Red wanted to. So I don't think he misjudged him. I think maybe what he did was he misjudged Jasper, assuming that he had the right friends in the right alliance. So in this case, yeah, he's a little bit put off because of that.
I don't know. I think because Red was ready to flee. I mean, he was ready to run. And that to me says he realizes now the director has a lot of power and he can't escape this organization. They've decided his fate, which would lead me to think that he's actually afraid of him now, where he wasn't before. I think he felt like he had the upper hand, and now he realizes, wow, this guy is much more adept at going against me than I originally planned.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's totally true.
Tom Keene, he wants to buy a boat, head down. Was it Indonesia? Is that where he wants to go?
Yeah. Why do people want to go down there versus like Hawaii or the Guam or something out in the Pacific Ocean?
Probably an extradition treaty. There's no extradition treaty or something, maybe? He
probably
can live there. He wants to open a charter business.
Which is really interesting when you think about the fact that Red owns the port in Indonesia.
Ooh. I forgot that. Look at you, Mr. Doing some research. What do you think about him opening this charter business? Do you want to see Tom's charter and murder business?
I go back again to the flashback episode, which people liked or hated. And just the way he was like, you see the good in me, you see me for who I really am, and that whole line. I think he wants to change. I think he wants to get out of this life of being this character. And because of that, I think setting up a charter business and starting over, I think is totally fine and plausible. The question is that another character? And he's feeding that line to Liz because he's a habitual liar.
I kind of think so. Honestly, I'm not buying it. I really am not. This is a guy who's been conditioned to lie. I think he's telling Liz exactly what she wants to hear so he can get back into her life. Like he says, Liz is his greatest success. Made him feel like he had a life. I don't know, man. I really think he's just setting her up again, or he's just playing on her emotions. You don't think so, though? You think he genuinely wants to change?
Well, he wants to be in Liz's life for real, because then he's like, I can't leave town yet. I have to tell you that Reddington put me in your life. So that moment of truth, I think, is where Liz can go, okay, I can trust Tom again. And that may come back that Tom has to help her out in the future now that Reddington's been shot, quote unquote.
It's not quote unquote, he was shot.
Right. We just don't know if he's really shot or if it was all fake blood and stuff that,
That's a lot of fake blood pouring out of his mouth, man.
Vanessa Cruz had a lot of fake blood in her, or real blood in her refrigerator, so who knows?
Wow, now you're really reaching into it. All right. That's a good call. Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe.
So what do you want to happen with this Tom thing? Because Tom finally tells Liz, yeah, Red's want to hire me. And we'll get to Liz and Red's confrontation here in a second, but what do you think about Tom? Where do you want to see him go at this point? Now that this is really the last big piece of his story for me that is laid on the table.
I think at the end of the day, what we saw in this episode was that Tom genuinely cares for Liz in some way, like Red genuinely cares for Liz in some way. So ultimately, because he did come back for the hearing with the judge, that at the end of the day, he wants Liz to be safe, just like Red wants Liz to be safe. And so I think that somewhere down the line, Red and Tom end up working together because they were originally partners from the beginning, because they have the same mission in mind, keep Liz safe above all else.
Okay. I'm not buying the reformed Tom like you are.
I didn't say he was reformed. I said he's doing what he was supposed to do, which was protect Liz and be in Liz's life.
I don't buy it. Well, hang on. I have a theory about the shooting I'll get to, so I'll reserve this statement for then.
He's reformed, when Liz calls him Jacob Phelps.
All right, well, let's go to Liz. Speaking of Liz, she tells Tom Red has a moral code that doesn't include lying to her. And all I thought when I heard that was, what? Because you seem to believe this too. And I'm like, he will lie to her. He's done it. So I don't understand why people still think this is a thing.
He's never, ever lied to her.
That you are aware of.
He's withheld information.
That's lying where I come.
That's not lying.
Oh, you know what? Right now, I'll wait. Go talk to your wife and ask her if you think that's, honey, do you think me not telling you is lying? See what she says.
But there's stuff that you lie about. Like, you get asked the question, because it's in context of asking the questions. So if you ask the question of, hey, where were you last night? And you tell a lie, that's lying. If you don't get asked the question, you don't have to divulge the truth. That's just withholding information.
I guess I was raised different, Troy. I was raised to be a good boy. And if well, it's debatable.
Well, and the fact that they have this conversation, that Red has this code that he can't lie to Liz, and then we get the end of the episode where Liz says, just give me a yes or no, and he flat out says, yes, I put Tom in your life, confirms that he doesn't lie to Liz. So that means we can confirm that Red is not Liz's father.
In your mind, my friend. In your mind, not in my mind.
Based on the rules of the show that have been established. And now they can change the rules.
I don't believe they've been established in that respect. I believe that Red tells the truth when it serves him, because that was an instance where he knew he was had. He didn't have a way out of it, so he just owned up to it. That's the way I saw it. I didn't see it as, you know what, Liz, let me tell you the truth. Because if he really wanted her to know the truth, he would have told her from the get-go. He told her because he was had. He had to. He was busted. You don't agree with that? He only says something if he's busted.
I guess it holds true then, because he only told her about Sam when he was technically busted about Sam too.
Exactly. He only tells her what he has to. He never tells her the real truth. So I just don't buy into that theory. I don't buy into it.
So this is the second time it's come up now about the whole I can't lie to you thing.
Mm-hmm. But only when he's busted does he tell her the truth.
So either Bokenkamp and company are reinforcing it, or they're totally throwing it in there as a red herring to misdirect.
Very possible. Either one is very possible, but I know most people believe that, he will lie to her. It's the code. I don't buy that, because for me, omission is lying. So I come from different parts of the streets. That's what I'm going with. So she tells Tom he's her biggest failure as a profiler. I am so glad she said that out loud, because everybody in the audience was thinking it. Because it's true. Like, for a renowned FBI profiler who basically teaches college students every once in a while, apparently, or at least for one episode, she is not very good at it. Her husband, in this respect, because her husband was a complete assassin. I was glad she said it out loud.
Yeah, and I mean, she misprofiled the deer hunter too, so I'm glad they clarified that this was her biggest failure as a profiler, because she's failed before.
Well, I mean, everybody's going to fail, but this is a pretty big one. Like, I didn't realize my husband was killing people. That's a big one. He didn't seem like it. He wore glasses, so he didn't seem like an assassin.
And gel in his hair and sweaters.
Exactly. He was too pretty. Pretty people don't kill people. Well, she wants Tom to tell the truth, which he did, and then she kisses him goodbye. Do you think that is a legitimate goodbye? And I was also very glad they didn't have hot, sweaty sex, by the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say it was a genuine goodbye. I mean, she kissed him, so that means that she was truly saying, like, thank you for everything, but we're done. You would do that, like with a girlfriend as you're breaking up, as long as you're breaking up amicably or stuff. I would.
And I said this last week, and I'm going to reiterate it, and I hope it's not, beating it into the ground. For me, Tom's storyline is pretty much done. By the end of the season, I really, as a fan, as a real big fan, and as a viewer, I really want his story to wrap up. I don't see any more that he can really add to the show, other than break Liz's heart, obviously. So I think it was a nice goodbye. I really don't know how much more they need to do with him.
Or protect Liz in Red's absence now that he's down.
Well, I want to hold that thought. Okay.
Exactly.
Hold that thought. Okay, so Liz confronts Red about Tom, gives him the fulcrum when he tells her the truth, quote unquote. Now that's a quote unquote. And tells him to shoot fly. I'm done with you. Once again, I'm done with you. But this time it actually seems like she really means it. I just want to be out of it. She gives him the fulcrum. No more of that BS. Red gets shot. Before we get to Red gets shot, I want to say, do you think she was right in the fulcrum? giving him the fulcrum and just saying, get out of here. This is what you want.
I'm going to say yes, because they had that conversation at like the soda shop or coffee shop or whatever it was. Like, did you seriously think I would kill you after you give me the fulcrum? And she got the sense that he wouldn't. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if he made it sound as dire as it was, and now that they have this piece of information that really just solidifies her hatred for Red for making Tom do these things to her, I'd want to be like, I'm done, I'm out, just leave me the heck alone. So, yeah, I mean, it's totally the right move. But strategically, as an FBI agent, it's the wrong move because you don't know what's going to happen next now. So she's really acting in a place of emotion rather than a place of a FBI agent in this case.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that seemed like a bad business decision, but it was a good personal one. I was a little surprised by it. Now, we'll come back to the shooting portion. Red told Jasper he was going to assassinate the director. Was that a mistake? We're on Red now. Was that a mistake, telling him that?
No, because they were all, once the vote was down and the director was overthrown, if it would have went that way, the director's not going to sit idly by. So someone's going to take him out and kill him so that he can't cause any ruckus. So, you know, if you're just saying, yeah, I'm going to take him out, that's totally plausible. I would see people buying into that, especially if Jasper was trying to play along.
Can you describe the ruckus, sir? Sorry, I had a Breakfast Club moment. I thought Pride was his downfall. I actually thought this was Red's downfall. When he speaks about Pride, I think he really didn't realize it at the time, but he was referring to himself, because I really think that Pride, thinking he could get the best of the director, was his mistake.
Right.
And getting the best of Jasper was his mistake. And it ends up coming back at him and potentially costing Hobbs his life.
Right. Pigs eat, hogs get slaughtered, and because he thought he had this all buttoned up, he got taken out. Potentially.
Exactly. And they're talking about Julius Caesar, which is a very famous play. And he refers to himself as the Rubicon, which the Rubicon refers to like crossing the Rubicon, and it means kind of the point of no return. That's refers to Julius Caesar's army crossing of the river in 49 BC, which was considered an act of insurrection. Basically, it means you took an irrevocable step that commits one to a specific course. So as Caesar crossed the Rubicon, the die has been cast. There's no coming back, which really refers to what happens in this episode, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And I almost took it initially as the, don't cross me, because if you cross me on this, you are stating your path of direction at that point, because nobody crosses Red and gets away with it, which was this whole forked tongue comment and sending it to the director in a box. So I think that's exactly where the metaphor came from. He's saying, don't cross me, make this happen.
It was a very cool moment, because that was a deep and insightful comment that a lot of people didn't understand, because a lot of people don't know Julius Caesar, which is totally understandable. So that's why we just wanted to let everybody that doesn't know what it means, let you know what it means. And I thought that was very cool. And I like that he's not referring to himself as Cassius or any of the other characters. He's referring to himself as the river, which in the play is a huge moment. So that's very, very cool. Now, realizing that Jasper's full of it, and Red tells him, like I said, to run like the prairie wind, he does tell Lizzie the truth for whatever the reasons. I think we've talked about that ad nauseum. And then he gets himself shot. Big surprise of the episode. Everybody's talking about it. Theories, my friend. Who shot JR? I mean, who shot Red?
Who shot Mr. Burns? No.
Exactly.
Like we said, the obvious theories, I think, are that he's not really dead because Red's the show. So Red faked his death so that the fulcrum information could be released to get back at the clandestine group in order to take them down because the vote didn't go his way. So that's the obvious answer. The not so obvious answer is that I think it could be the Major figuring out where everybody was, and the Major took him out with one of his contract people because he wanted to get to the fulcrum as well because he probably knew about it. Crackpot theory answer would be that where you were going with Mr. Kaplan, that Mr. Kaplan has a new employer, and that new employer is who took Red out. Okay,
so you got like 8 theories here, my friend. Which one are you putting your head in the sand about? Drawing the line in the sand, I should say. That was the right analogy.
Because some people were saying Tom could be the shooter as well, because...
That's the one I want. That's mine.
That's yours?
That's mine.
Fine. Tom's the shooter for you. Okay. So I'm going to go, because it's the Vanessa Cruz episode with framing people, I have to go with the obvious. That he faked his death and he's framing somebody for it so that the fulcrum can be released, because that was the threat. If I die, then the fulcrum comes out because I have the fulcrum, which he does have now. And Dembe can put that protocol into action.
You think he's faking his own death?
I'd say he died. He got shot.
Okay. Well, huh. Oh, so you mean basically to throw them off the scent.
Right.
To get them off his back.
Right. He basically gets shot because there was a conversation earlier in the episode where he was talking to Dembe, and he says, Dembe, we got to go away for a little while. So maybe it was all planned ahead of time. So he had somebody shoot him, and then in a way that they knew where to shoot him so that he could live, or at least get to the hospital, and then they go underground and disappear. So that the fulcrum can come out, and that whole, what Hobbs is talking about, the protocol is going to be put into play if Red's killed. And so now that he has the fulcrum, Dembe can put the protocol in play, and now we start taking down the clandestine group one by one, which is going to be 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on the blacklist.
Look at you. You're so smart. I guess that's why you do a podcast. And I'm just here to get things wrong. I am still sticking with the Tom theory. I really think Tom did. Now, the motives, I'm not so sure. But I do think that's a way that they're going to utilize Tom to keep him in the show. And it's definitely going to be Tom. Now, it could be that Tom is working for Red still. And he did that on Red's behalf, like you were saying. I don't know what the motives are, but I do believe it's Tom.
Right, because there's almost two questions. There's the who did the shooting, but what were the motives behind the shooting?
Absolutely. Now, I think the motives are the bigger question. I definitely do not think it's the director. I think that is a total misdirection. I think we're all supposed to think that, but I don't for a second think it was any of them. In my opinion, as an avid TV viewer, if it was going to be one of them, we would have seen more build up from the actual shooter up to the shooting. And I think by not showing us anything to do with the shooter, I think that's to allude that it's a character we're already familiar with.
Yeah, because you don't want to spoil it, or maybe they come in with the next episode, and maybe the next episode's opening sequence is the other perspective from the shooter's perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be interesting.
Now, that's the one thing I saw a lot of scuttlebutt on the internet saying, well, we're probably not going to find out for a long time. Man, the show pays things off pretty quick. I really think you'll find out who the shooter is in the next episode or two. I don't think it'll be a drawn-out process. I would actually be surprised if it's not answered next week.
Well, and it's really interesting because on the NBC press site, they haven't actually released any pictures for the episode that it's coming up in 3 weeks. So I wonder how long Red will actually be off the show or down.
That's a good question. We should explain that. Tell everybody what's going on with the show.
Well, yeah. So the show right now is going to take the kind of typical 2-week Easter break. They need to save some episodes for May because they have this thing called May sweeps in the ratings game, if the ratings actually mean anything anymore. And so that's why they're holding off. And I believe the series finale is listed as the 14th. So we're going to get 4 one-hour episodes starting on April 23rd is when it comes back.
Okay. That's good. So we're going to have basically a 2-week window where there's not going to be any show to discuss for us, right? And what we're going to try to do is try to get at least one special episode in there during that time.
Absolutely. That's the hope.
Yeah, that's the hope. So we're working on that. So just keep checking your podcast app. We're hoping to have that. It'll be somewhere in the middle. So there's 3 weeks before another show. So probably like 10 days in, 12 days. Just keep checking. I think we're going to have we'll have something no matter what, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's just us, then that's fine. But we're trying to get a third party. We'll let you know how that works out. But I think that pretty much does it for that portion for the characters and whatnot. Unless there's anything more you want to come back to. I mean, who shot Red is really the big question that they're leaving us with.
Right. Who shot him? What was the motive? And where the heck was the shooter? Was it down the street? Was he up in a window on a roof somewhere?
It's always in a window. He's always in a window or a roof.
It looked like Dembe and Liz were just firing into nothing.
Well, I don't know how they got the trajectory from that, but they just like to fire. Let's put it this way. If somebody wanted to shoot them, they're all sitting there right in the open. They would have got shot.
Well, and let's be clear then, because Red was facing back to the shooter, but yet the blood was coming out the front. So the bullet went clean through, which is always a good thing because you can usually recover if the bullet goes clean through versus the bullet still being in there.
Okay, JFK, let's not go in too deep into this conspiracy thing. The magic bullet and the trajectory and the wind and the grassy knoll, I don't know what's going on. I just know he got shot.
I'm just saying he got shot in the back and the blood was in the front. So bullet went through, which means he's still alive.
I think that's just TV magic. That's what I think. We'll find out. You don't even think he got shot. You thought he was faking.
No, he got shot. He definitely got shot. That is for sure.
Okay.
Because there wasn't like a ketchup packet smeared on his thing as he went down to fake it.
No. But earlier in this particular episode, you can go back and listen to yourself. You said just like Vanessa Cruz, maybe he's got like blood in his mouth and he's faking it and da-da-da-da.
Well, yeah, he could be faking it, but he got shot.
You confuse me sometimes.
I meant like faking his death.
You confuse me. That's all I know. You confuse me. Okay, well, we have 3 weeks off before the final 4 season 2 episodes. So for the next few weeks, each and every one of you need to do 3 things, if you would. Head on over to goldenspiralmedia.com/iTunes, click on the Blacklist Exposed, and leave us a 5-star written review. That would really help the show, and we really appreciate it. It tells us how much you love the show and how much you will miss us for the next couple weeks, even though we will have something. Share this show. Number 2, share this show with everyone you know that loves the Blacklist. Let's get more Blacklisters in here before the finale. We would love to have like a really big dialogue for the finale so we can do a proper wrap-up of the season episode. You guys know you have your friends that watch, so get them to listen to. 3, visit goldenspiralmedia.com/Patreon. That's Patreon. goldenspiralmedia.com/Patreon. And if you feel like sponsoring the show, kind of like leaving us Blacklist baristas as a tip, as it would be greatly appreciated. That's only if you would like to. There's no requirement or anything. We'll continue to do this show for you no matter what. But now on to the fun stuff with Special Agent Intel and Red's Rhetoric.
Bennington and Mr. Jasper's conversations went bipolar this week, so why not feature both of them on Red's Rhetoric? The first clip this week is going to come when he meets Jasper in the room with Hobbs.
You know I lean towards the director. Why should I change that position now?
Because, Mr. Jasper, you strike me as a man who would prefer to pitch rather than catch.
What the hell have you done?
Just hear him out. That's all I ask.
Roger is quite right. The director's latest stratagem is hubris. It has very little to do with me and everything to do with the consolidation of his power. If he succeeds, you'll become nothing more than his trusted servant. He needs to go. He will go. Tomorrow, after the meeting. After you win this vote, with everything that your head and your heart tell you are true.
You're talking about assassination.
Yes, Mr. Jasper. Ambition's debt must be paid.
Julius Caesar.
One of my favorites. The play, not so much the man. The man was a bit full of himself. He did have a brilliant military mind, but he couldn't smell a plot to save his life. Intentional pun.
And why is that?
Pride. The subtlest and yet most deadly of the 7 sins. Like the director. He couldn't be saved.
Which part do you play in all this? Cassius?
Oh, no. I'm the Rubicon. You simply need to determine which side of history you want to end up on. Who are you, Mr. Jasper? A subordinate who remains slavishly obedient to his master? Or the presumptive leader of an organization that will be far more powerful than it has ever been?
The second clip comes when Jasper and Red have a phone conversation and Red realizes that Jasper crossed the Rubicon.
It's me. It's done.
I'm listening.
The vote went your way. The director wasn't very happy, but a vote's a vote.
And Hobbs?
He wants to meet.
Yes, I'm quite sure he would have. But he can't, can he?
What are you talking about?
Hobbs was to contact me after the vote was cast. He didn't, which means he's dead, which means you betrayed him. Betrayed me.
That's not true. He specifically asked that the 3 of us should meet so that we can discuss the future.
You need to run, Jasper. Run like the prairie wind, because I'm coming for you. And when I find you, I'm going to cut up that forked tongue of yours and deliver it to the director myself. It's time to go away, Dembe.
Which one do you like best this week? Send us a tweet with your vote at the Blacklist GSM on Twitter, or post a comment in the Facebook group. That's the Blacklist Exposed if you search up in the search bar. with the hashtag Red Rubicon if you would rather pitch than catch, or Red Fork if forked tongue is on the menu tonight.
Now let's move to Special Agent Intel. First, Mark. WTF, wifey thinks there's something to the cleaner. Red's bespectacled, trusted fixer woman, Mr. Kaplan, hooking up with the black-haired villainess of this episode. Something dealing with all of the blood samples. Maybe a staged fake shooting.
There's a lot of people that have that theory.
A distraction to make people think he's dead so he can come back and exact his revenge once Jasper and the director let their guard down following Red's apparent death. I tried to do that as dramatic as possible. I'll have to think about how those pieces fit this ever-changing and phenomenal puzzle, which is the Blacklist.
Now, he's saying that he's going to exact revenge. I don't think that the director and all of them would let their guard down, because if the protocol was Red dies, Fulcrum gets released, they would not be having their guard down. They'd be watching over their shoulder all the time.
This is true. I am really curious where this is going to go, but I love the theories on this. And there's a lot of great theories about what's going on. So keep them coming in. Barbara is also on the Red fakes his own death theory, but here are several reasons. Wow, I'm like the only person that doesn't think that. I'm starting to think it's just me. Number 1, gain time to get information about the Fulcrum. Number 2, this will enable him to frame Alliance members with the help of Cruz. Number 3, his death is supposed to set off a collapse of Alliance, which was a main reason Fitch wanted Red alive due to the threat of his death setting in motion the Alliance's secrets. It's kind of what you were talking about. Number 4, it will prove to the Alliance that Red did indeed have the Fulcrum because people are going down. 5, his shooting and near-death experience will lessen any negativity Liz feels towards him when she almost, quote-unquote, loses him. Thoughts? I think those are great options, and yes, I think it all works. Everything you said makes sense to me.
Number 1, Barbara, I love that you used Alliance, just because we're Alias fans. Instead of the clandestine group, which is really what it is.
Did you pay her?
No, I didn't. I did not
Barbara,
pay her.
are you on the take?
I like the misdirection for Liz's feelings. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but it is funny because whenever Red's in danger, Liz seems to kind of forget about it.
I think Red doesn't do anything without thinking everything through, every aspect of it. If that is the case, and he did set in motion his own shooting, which is very possible, it actually makes a lot of sense. And I still think Tom is the shooter. Now, maybe he paid Tom, I don't know, but I still think Tom is a shooter. But yeah, it would make sense that he would finally tell Liz about Tom right as he's going to garner sympathy from her. So that would kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. Right?
Right.
Yep. I like it. Nice job, Barbara, even if Troy is paying you to say Alliance as often as possible. Thomas asked this question. So if the passports that Tom had were from Red, does that mean the box with the symbol on the lid holding them was from Red too? Same design box that Gina Zanetakos had. If you can say that name correctly, I will give you $1.
Well, we just refer to it as Zanetakos because everybody likes Zanetakos to eat. Yeah, because I think we covered that in season 1 when we were back on TV Talk, because when that whole episode with Gina came down and there was that whole shooting in Boston at the hotel, and we found out that Gina was the one that was actually the shooter while Red was talking to one of Red's guys, then that clearly says that Gina was on Red's payroll. And the fact that the scar on Liz's hand matches the scar that's on top of both boxes, clearly now I think those boxes were from Red all along, which then makes you wonder, did Red give Liz that scar?
Oh, nice. Nice. Okay. All right. I hadn't thought about that, but I definitely think the box itself was from Red. I mean, if you're going to have everything else, it makes sense. And since it's finally come out that he's always worked for Red, I think we should just assume that, right? We'll just assume it.
Right. And then some people were talking about Gina Zanetakos on the Facebook group. Remember, she did escape, I think, at the end of season 1, and so she's loose. So it could be possible that Tom and Gina hook back up to help out Red's organization while Red's down as well.
Yeah, and I want to commend Tom, by the way, for even putting that together, because I totally forgot about that. And we watch this show a lot as well, as you guys do. And kudos to you, sir, because I really forgot that. Did you remember that before he mentioned it?
Oh, yeah, the box and the scar theory was like the first one out of the gate. Like, why is the scar the same symbol on the box? And then why does Gina have the same box? So initially we thought Gina and Tom were working for Berlin, but now we know that they were really working for Red based on the fact that Red hired Tom.
See, here's the one thing. The best part about watching the show live and being able to be on Twitter is that you get to see everybody's reaction, or on the Facebook group especially too. You get to see everybody's reactions to everything. And a lot of the little things that you might miss initially, that it might come to you down the road or with another episode or something, they'll be triggered a lot quicker. And so I missed that this week. And that's usually a big help at figuring some things out. It's like, oh, I forgot about that, or that's right, because you guys have such great ideas and theories. So all that stuff starts popping up at the same time. And I missed that this week. It really adds to the show. It really does.
Like the whole Mitch and Hobbs concept where I missed
exactly.
it.
Yeah. It's really, really exciting to watch with you guys, and appreciate all the theories and stuff that you keep popping up. And lastly, Terry said, I actually had tears at the end. I can't wait to see what happens next. Will Lizzie abandon Red while he's down? I doubt it. I would say hell no. Where will the fulcrum wind up? And of course, who shot JR? Everybody's saying JR. Will Tom step in? Is Dembe safe? We know Red will come out of this, and he is the show, but it was rough seeing him that way. Do you think, great thoughts, Terry, we appreciate it. Now, do you think, Troy, anybody thinks Red is dead?
I don't, again, Bullet goes all the way through, regardless of if he's faked his own shooting or whatever. He's not dead. He's hurt.
No,
he's
I
down, but
that.
he's not going to die from this shooting, no.
No, you and I, everybody listening, I'm sure realizes that. Do you think anybody in the casual viewing audience, not the diehard fans that listen to the podcast or, have theories or jump on Facebook groups, that sort of thing, do you think they fooled anybody that he might actually be dead?
No.
Okay. Yeah, because it's one of those things where you watch and I always wonder stuff like this. Is somebody somewhere freaking out that he's actually dead? Because there would be no Blacklist. So it's one of those cliffhangers. It's not really a cliffhanger. It's more about the who and the why, not the is it going to happen. He's not dead.
Right. Exactly.
Although it would throw the show off for loop. Tom becomes Red. They found a way to make Tom back into the show.
That'd be a very interesting way to keep it going for like 7 seasons.
Or maybe
somebody else's Blacklist as it goes along.
I like it. Or Dembe takes over. That's why he's a regular now.
Oh.
James Spader, he's going to go off and do Ultron movies. He's going to do a whole bunch of Marvel stuff, so he won't be available. So Dembe takes over. Now he's a regular. He takes over the Blacklist.
And remember, we were talking about how Red was grooming Liz to be like Red. So maybe Liz takes over.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody, when we were talking about our profiling question from last week, actually said, hey, why can't Liz and Dembe hook up? So now it looks like we're going to at least have that from a partner in crime perspective, because Dembe's got to protect Liz.
Did they mean that partner in crime, or did they mean... Well,
that's what they implied, because that's what we implied with the Team Ressler, Team Tom.
I'm perfectly cool with that. I like Dembe. He's a handsome fella, too. She don't have any ugly people around her. So it's easy to root for them all. Except Red. Okay, well, that's going to conclude this episode. Be sure to follow us on Twitter this season at The Blacklist GSM. We live tweet during the East Coast feed, and we will use the show's hashtag, The Blacklist. We also have a Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search for The Blacklist Exposed. Join us for the fun. Lots of great theories on there, man. I love it.
Oh, yeah, the conversation's been great because we're getting lots of intel from you, and that's exactly what we want. But you can do that in a few ways as well, not just Facebook or Twitter. Head on over to goldenspiralmedia.com/theblacklist. We'd like to hear some of your dulcet tones. Go ahead and use our send voicemail button to go ahead and be featured right here on the podcast yourself.
You can also subscribe to the podcast in iTunes and Stitcher from the website as well, and find all the intel and analysis about this episode for Vanessa Cruz. Again, visit goldenspiralmedia.com/theblacklist. And I do want to add, if you're already in the Facebook group, invite any of your friends, like we said, that happen to listen or watch the show. I think you can just invite them into the group, right? Isn't that how it works?
Absolutely.
Yep. So feel free to bring them on over. Big thanks for listening. Don't forget to answer our profiling question. Who shot Red Reddington?
And expand. Why do you think that happened?
Yeah, the why is important. The why is important.
Until next time, I am Agent Troy Heinrichs. That's at Troy Heinrichs on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit about.me/Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, available at thehollywoodoutsiders.com, on Twitter at H_outsider, or my personal Twitter is @Kaz_Peters. I almost forgot what my own Twitter was. We will make sure to have another episode soon and let you know how we did at the podcast awards as well. Be sure to subscribe, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of
The Blacklist. The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production, copyright 2015. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.